And you should have the ability to share, I think, if you have a presentation or things that you want to share. Let's see if we can get that, make sure that that's working okay.
Yes, but before that, since you surprised Oren to present me, I will present him. I would just say very briefly that Oren is the president of a certain Toastmasters of the Toastmasters chapter down in Silicon Valley. Those of you, and it is dedicated and specifically for project management. So it's a combination of project managers who come in to Toastmasters. Those of you who don't know what Toastmasters is, Oren will be happy to tell you. Basically, it's for those people who want to improve their ability to do presentations, to speak in front of a public and things like that. It's a well-known organization worldwide. Oren is the chapter president down there. So you can contact him if you want to join. But
Yeah,
now I will
okay.
go to the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Okay, give me a moment. I'm sharing. Share. Okay, with a little bit of luck, you should be able to see my slide. Somebody can give me a thumbs up to confirm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We can see that. Okay. So glad to be here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for Larry, of course, for the opportunity, for Oren, and thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope you'll have fun. If not useful, at least fun. I'll try to make it fun for everybody to enjoy. I'm going to talk basically about a bunch of observations that I've seen in my life as a Scrum Master and other positions. I also teach. I'll talk about it in a minute. What I saw about how people do Scrum. Some do better, some less. Most less, unfortunately, in my opinion. But I would like that to be like a discussion with you, a chat where I can hear from you also what your experience is, or what did you see, or what do you think about how to fix something, or how to do things better, and so on. Or you may disagree with my approach. Let me jump in, and we'll make it work. So who am I? Basically, I started many years ago as an engineer. I got my PhD in computer science also quite a few years ago now. And I've been in the IT world since '97, many years. Almost all of those years, I was some sort of an IT technical project manager, whether it be Waterfall or Scrum or something like that. Pretty much can say since 2004. I have been, since I've been so many years, I've been almost in any company size and style you can think of, from tiny startups with like 8 people all the way to Walmart, which is for those of you who don't know, the largest company in the world. And I challenge you to try to guess how many employees does Walmart have? Anybody wants to throw in a number without peeking at Google, without searching? What do you think? Edward?
Good evening.
30,000.
Sorry, my phone woke up. Sorry, say again.
30,000.
30,000. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Well, are you talking about employees or contractors? And are you talking about in Walmart labs, or are you talking about Walmart extended?
Worldwide.
Oh, fair enough. Much more.
Anybody? Any number?
Let's try 300,000.
300,000. Anybody else? I'm moving on. I'm just give you one more chance. All right. Those of you who want, Google it. I'll tell you a little later. Anyways, like I said, you have a list here of some of the companies I worked for as a project manager. Right now, I am kind of the agile practice lead, whatever that means, at Fisher Investments, investment company. I'm in charge of making agile and making it better for a big part of the company, and then we are expanding slowly to the entire company. At the same time, also as sort of like a hobby, I also teach project management, UC Berkeley extension, and for Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz extension. Those I do like on the evenings for fun, and a little bit of money, but it's really maybe primarily for fun. I do both project management in waterfall styles, like PMP for those of you familiar, but I also teach Scrum and Agile and all these fun stuff. So this is a hobby of mine. I have been working as a Scrum Master on and off since probably 2010, something like that. So that's about me. Anybody, any questions before we go to talk about stuff? All right. So rules for today. I only have one set of rules. Ask, agree, disagree, comment, talk. So it's boring if I talk only by myself. So please go ahead, feel comfortable, and chime in if you have questions, and so on. I'll start by just randomly. I see only some of you on the screen because the screen does not show all the 40 something or so participants. But those of you who can see, if you have any background, practical, working, Scrum, Agile, anything, can you please do a thumbs up just to get a sense a little bit? There is a thumbs up electronic if you for those of you in Zoom. Okay, some of you have done it. All right, cool. I'll be looking for you to help me to disagree, agree, chime in with your own experience and stuff like that. So thank you. So let's move forward. Let's start with the famous Agile Manifesto. I hope at least most of you or some of you are familiar. I don't know, Larry, if you already covered it in your class with the latest class. So this is kind of the Bible, right? I'm not going to read it out. Those of you who are into Agile and Scrum presumably should know this by heart, be very well versed with this, the famous individuals and interactions over processes and tools and all these beautiful things that we all feel are very, very important in Agile. But what is happening in the real world? Does this happen in the real world the way it's written here, the way we want it? Does anybody have an experience that you can say, I have an opinion about this, how well this works in real life? Well, if anybody wants to chime in and just briefly say what you think. Otherwise, I will. All right, I will continue. So there's another kind of a manifesto, the real world manifesto that I found somewhere, which I kind of liked. Because I liked it, I'm going to read it out to you. I think it's kind of fun. So, manifesto for our company, Agile Software Development. We have heard about new ways of developing software by paying consultants and reading Gartner reports. Through this, we have been told to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and we have mandatory processes and tools to control how those individuals, we prefer to call them resources, interact. Working software over comprehensive documentation, as long as everything is comprehensively documented. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation within the boundaries of strict contracts. Responding to change over following a plan, provided the response follows the plan precisely, and we charge the customer through their nose for every change. Okay? That is, while the items on the left sound nice, we're an enterprise company, so we stick with the items on the right. Okay, so you have the original Agile Manifesto, which is nice. And by the way, I'm not trying to say that this is a bad or wrong or unrealistic manifesto, but in life there are pressures. And I hope some of you have seen those things and experienced them. Where everybody said, leadership says, yeah, it's a good, nice, we heard about it. We heard about Agile. It's beautiful. Yeah, we know it's beautiful. We heard about it. But we still want you to do the old ways. Do Agile, but you can do it as long as you follow the contract. Do Agile as long as you tell us exactly and commit to the date you're going to finish the project and give us a report every week or every month or every something, and stand up to all our expectations and requirements, which are waterfall requirements. For example, I want to see the requirement specification fully fleshed out, 200 pages with 2,000 requirements before you start working. And those of you familiar with Agile and Scrum know that this is considered to be, let's say gently, not a good idea. That's kind of gently putting it, right? Any responses or reactions to this, anybody, before I continue? Just for fun. Anybody has seen anything like that?
Okay. We have Jim raising his hand.
Say again? Can you repeat? I'm sorry.
We have Jim raising his hand. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, no need to, by the way, no need to raise hands, just shout out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, usually works well in small groups, but as soon as management has a real change that they have to make themselves, the conflicts usually start arising. So it's often a problem with scale.
Yep, definitely. It's also a matter of money and stuff. Management gets nervous when they hear that actually you need to put money into this thing because transferring, converting to Agile is not always so cheap. What, you need a Scrum Master for every team? Can't you use a Scrum Master for 5 teams? It's a lot of money to hire a special dedicated Scrum Master or product owner for each team. Can we use a product owner for 3 teams and things like that?
There's also a fear of losing control and allowing control to happen at the individual product or product development level, as opposed to that master planning and 5-year roadmap and all that.
Correct. And there's the classical issue of the first level 1 manager, who is the manager of these people in the team. And he says, or she says, I don't know anymore what my job is.
Yep.
Because Agile team are supposed to be self-organizing, which is a kind of way of saying, manager, please stay outside. We know what to do. We know our job. Just let us do our job. And the manager is like, so what do I get to do here? I want to come in and tell you what to do. You'll do this and you'll do that, and you tell me how you're doing, and you tell me what's the status. And the team says, go away. No, that's not how we work anymore. In Agile, we don't do that. And so you're absolutely right. This is a problem. Let's start a little bit. I'm not sure I'm going to cover all the slides, but that's okay. I have spares, and I will cover as much as we go, because I want to give you guys the opportunity to discuss and bring up stuff. So Agile in the enterprise. This is something, Jim, that you just mentioned, right? How does it work in the whole enterprise? So the first question is, where's the executive sponsorship? Okay. If you are doing, like you said, if you are a startup, okay, you're a startup, a small team, that's the entire company, 5, 6, 10 people. Okay, let's do Agile. Everybody's happy. We do Agile. Fine. If we are 500 people in an enterprise, this is a completely different scale of problem, right? And one of the ways that I saw people trying to jumpstart Agile, because usually most of the times, the beginning of Agile in an enterprise begins with the soldiers on the ground, so to speak, right? Those who want to have the Scrum team, the engineers, the product managers, they want to give it a try. It doesn't usually come from higher level leadership. Leadership usually comes in and either says, no, we don't like it, yes, we like it, but it starts from the ground, usually. But it takes a long time and a great deal of work to convince leadership to adopt Agile. And teams are eager to start. And so one of the approaches is, all right, we are a team, we're 5 people, let's start doing Agile, and we'll sort of get everybody behind us. We'll show them how beautiful it is, get them excited, and get them behind us. And once other teams see and leadership sees how good it works, they will start sponsoring it and supporting it more and so on. So this is the little picture here you see here. You see this little red thingy is our Agile project. What's your experience? I don't know if you have experienced anybody, how this works. Have you seen this grassroots kind of team trying to bring Agile into the company?
So I can speak to when I was working in a food and beverage company.
Mm-hmm.
When I first came into the company, I was looking to be able to perform a full transformation and getting everyone on the operation floor working on a manner where they're able to meet, where they'll be able to understand those schedules as they're going week by week, working in more of a sprint fashion. And I was sat down and very clearly explained, this is not how we do things. But we do have this one project over here, and we have no idea what to do with this project. And so taking that approach with that one project, I started to see other things enter, whether it was through our catering business or through other things, entering an agile model, because they would look at the successes that came out of putting this retail product into market and how they weren't able to do it for years previously. And they would say, hey, let's try this thing out.
So you're saying this worked, actually? People
Yes.
saw, leadership saw that it was doing well, and
I'm saying it worked, but only because I had direct contact with leadership.
That's good. Yeah, you need some luck too, or luck, or the good opportunity, good circumstances, right? From my experience, I don't say that it's not going to work. I'm not saying that it's hard, but I would say two comments about this particular uh, aspect. Is if you start grassroots, and I think this follows also what Edward says, is if you cannot demonstrate really impressively in an exciting fashion how this is so much better, and the word has to spread around up to the level of management that there's this magic team over there that does great, then it will probably remain almost like indefinitely as a single team doing their thing, and everybody will say, oh, that's the team over there doing their thing. It will not spread over to the rest of the organization. Um, and that's okay, but okay for the team. But what we want to accomplish in a big company is move the entire company over to Agile. In order to move them in this way, in this fashion to Agile, you have to be a really, really successful team and show everybody how good you do, how good it is, enough that the word reaches the upper echelons and they start paying attention. Okay? So that's important. Any Any questions or comments about this? Anybody, any reactions, feedback? Yeah, Jim, go ahead. You're mute. You're mute. Jim, you're muted.
Yeah, working on it. I think the main thing that gets the executives to consider an agile transformation is seeing their competitors move ahead of them in the market, competitors who have done an agile transformation. The other thing that gets them to do it is not necessarily competitors, but executive level colleagues who are talking it up. But it's not as often seems driven by listening to their own employees telling them that it really ought to happen.
Totally. Yes, I agree. That's another way to influence, or that the leadership gets influenced, is by looking around them and other companies and hearing how good it is, and they begin to pay attention. They don't know exactly what it is. They don't know exactly what's going on. They are busy people. They don't have time. They don't think they need to know really, but they begin to hear stuff, and they start paying attention because competition is pressuring, right? And so you're very right, and that might indeed help. Um, Another thing that I observed is the sponsorship that is like the say-do gap. It has the say-do gap. So the gap between saying and actually doing it. Okay. Like I said earlier, it costs. You have to do some stuff if you're a leader, if you're a manager, if you're an executive, in order to make it happen. Okay. First of all, you need to understand what I mentioned earlier. In a way, is the fuzzy triple constraint. Okay. Leadership is used to come to the teams and say, you tell me when you're going to be finished with this project, when it's going to be completely finished, even if it's like a year out, okay, how much it's going to cost and what exactly it's going to include and look like, which is the other words of everybody's familiar with the triple constraint? The triple constraint, right? Time, cost, and scope. Right? This is what as an executive care about, and they continue to care about it. So they say to the team, you need to tell us, and you need to commit to it, and you need to fix it. And Agile says, no, we don't really know. We don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't know how long it's going to take. We can give you a rough estimate, but not exactly. And leadership doesn't like it because they say, we have commitments. We have contracts. We signed the contract that we need to deliver it on this date. Every day that we're running late is $1 million, penalty or whatnot, or it's a breach of contract or whatever they call it. And so they say, you can't come to me and say, I don't know exactly when I'm going to finish this project. I want the date. All right. What do you do if you want to do Agile and your chief, whatever, says, I want a date and I want you to commit to a date and I want you to hit the date? Any suggestion? Let's say you're a project manager or Scrum Master or whatever, and you're in this situation and you want to do Agile. And you don't have to raise your head, just shout out. No idea. You need to think about those things because it may be, you may find yourself in a situation like that. Okay. So I guess the answer would be there's a long story to tell them about why agile is better, blah blah blah. I'm not going to go into all of this stuff because you may have learned it with Larry or some other fashion. But for me, from my experience, perhaps the most convincing argument is, so in the past, when you forced your team to make these kinds of commitment, how well did it work for you? And they usually will say, very bad. Well, then why do you insist? It's not going to work. That's the whole idea of Scrum and Agile, is that we cannot make this work. We human beings cannot plan our work that good, and our world is not that stable and fixed that we can really commit precisely to a day and to a budget and all of that. And sometimes that helps them get the idea. They need to know they have to put money into training, into teams, build into the teams, and sometimes of also specific infrastructure, be it computer science, computer systems, be it, those of you who are familiar, some online tools specifically for agile, like if you heard Jira or Rally or some tools like that. Okay. What about collocation? Everybody, I hope, familiar with this, with the concept that agile says you have to be collocated, right? Everybody has to sit together. How does that work with management and leadership? Anybody from your experience want to chime in?
I wrote a book about that.
There you go.
Because
really a book?
I wrote 2 books,
Oh,
very small books, but the first book I wrote, I didn't know I wrote a book, but I got so pissed off because the company I was doing consulting with had taken the Agile Manifesto and they had printed it out and posted it all over the building. But they took out those things that they weren't comfortable with, one of them being co-location.
yes.
And I was offended.
Yep.
So I wrote a book on, with basically it was 16 blog posts, one on each value and principle, and then we ended up throwing it into a book. My son's girlfriend was working in marketing, and I was paying her to do some marketing. She said, "We got a book here," and she helped publish that book years ago, and that was my first book. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that a lot of companies are doing offshore, and I don't talk much about offshore, and there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong about offshore, but if what we're doing is about communication and collaboration, it's really hard to collaborate with somebody who's sleeping while you're working, and vice versa.
Yep.
So this has been a real big issue forever, right? Even before the manifesto. Whether or not we need people who can communicate, or we can just buy the cheapest person wherever they might be throughout the world. And as somebody put in there, COVID hasn't changed things much.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. This is a problem. This is going to be a problem, and I think it's going to stay a problem. So I think everybody here should be aware that this is probably not going to get better. It's as simple as money. Executives look at money, that's their job, and they say, it cost me 1/10 of the amount to have somebody in another country, China, India, whatever. Why should I pay 10 times more? And you tell them, but Agile says you have to collocate. And they say, I don't care. It's it's much cheaper. Money speaks, money talks. And so I'm not sure I have a good solution for this. I'll talk about it in a second. But I think the message I'm trying to give here, we are all going to live with this problem in the future. This is not going away. Even if the executives fall in love with Agile and Scrum, really fall in love with this, they will always say, yes, Agile is wonderful, but I'm not bringing people or work back into the country when it's 1/10 of the amount somewhere else. So we Agile people will have to find the solutions for that. Yes, Jim, you're mute. You're mute. You are mute.
Yeah, there we go again. The first step is to get off of focusing on the cost side of the equation and look at the cost benefit. If you're paying 1/10 as much, but you're getting only half as much work done, are you really ahead?
But it's hard to show it. You have to demonstrate it. And how do you demonstrate it? If you don't get people collocated to demonstrate the benefit, then you cannot demonstrate it.
And part of the
Okay.
problem is that a lot of the quality problems aren't going to show up until the technical debt accumulates, and that takes time.
That's right. You have to wait 6 months to show the benefit because it's cumulative. And so it's very, very hard. That's why I'm saying I think this is not a problem that's going to get solved in the future. We, project manager, agile people, have to find our own ways to live with that. Okay. Now, how do you live with that? Yeah, I don't have a lot of magic, but you can try to advocate, okay, if you want to people dispersed, at least get them into the same time zone or very similar time zone, almost the same time zone. So
Yeah.
at least we can meet on video. Somebody said something?
Yeah, Katrina had a question. She had her hand up. She has a question.
Yes.
Yes, I'm curious if anybody in this group has ever used proxies. I've been to 2 other meetups where there's been discussion about having a proxy in a different country for the product owner as well as a scrum master. And that the scrum master and product owner in like the headquarters would meet with those individuals on those during a specific time. And then of course, then the crew in another country would do the work. And then there's would be this like continual, more of like a 24-hour cycle. So I'm just curious if anybody has any experience in this model.
Did anybody experience that?
Yeah, I've had that experience. Generally speaking, it's going to work better because you're actually going to have somebody who is having some direct connection between the two teams. The issue I've run into, which is something that management does all the time, much to my chagrin, is that's just kind of wallpapering over the problem. You're finding an okay solution, but you're not being optimal. And that's a real tough thing too when you talk about selling it to somebody. We're very good at satisficing, which is just making things satisfactory and have them suffice, but we're not really good at understanding that it's not an optimal situation.
Right.
So if you make something 10% better when you could have made it 100% better, you're going to think the 10% better is great, and you're going to have people going on meetups and telling you to do this 10% better solution. Which is I was talking about Dunning-Kruger effect this morning, which is classic Dunning-Kruger. They don't know what they don't know, so they think that their 10% efficiency, whatever they want to call it, is great, and they're going to write books and tell blogs and go on talk shows. We don't get to do that, really. It's just in my fantasy world. But they're going to go out to the world and say, look, I've found the solution to the problem. The answer is they haven't found the solution. They found a solution, and it's not necessarily the best solution, but it's better than what they have today. Right.
So this is an argument for continuous improvement, right? It might improve a little bit, but we still have to figure out better ways.
My argument is we always want to get better, but we cannot assume that just because we've gotten 10% better that we are the best that we'll ever be, because it's a half measure at best, and it's better than where we are today. It reminds me of SAFe, by the way. It's better than we were probably last week, but it's not where I want to end up.
Right.
And sometimes these things end up being the goal as opposed to just a signpost along the drive. So yes, Katrina absolutely works better. It's not where I want to be long term because it doesn't really solve all the problems. It just solves some of them.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she said it explicitly. Yeah, go ahead, Katrina. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you, because I was just curious because I haven't seen it done. So it's nice to hear that, Larry, that you have some experience in it. And so thank you.
I had the conversation just today in my day job, so it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah. What some companies do to overcome this, again, not the 100% improvement, like you said, but go beyond the 10% maybe, is to just move the entire, agile operation over to that remote team. And they set the team up as their own agile operation. They say, in other words, they don't say, we want the scrum master here and the product owner there and the team over there. They just say, go and organize everything in China or everything in wherever in Russia, and let them operate over there as a completely autonomous agile team or a group of teams. And we here will be more like customers and just give us updates, or we'll give you feedback and stuff like that. So you just move the entire thing over there, and over there they can be collocated. I've heard about these solutions. They are better than nothing. Again, not perfect. So life is not always perfect. The idea that you mentioned, by the way, Katrina, about having Scrum Masters and product owners on both countries meet and coordinate, that's also a solution. I have not seen it. I have not seen really, to be honest, these implementations. I heard they work somewhat, but I haven't seen it myself. Okay. So that's co-location. As you can see, it's a big issue. We have a problem with that. Even sitting in not in the same building, in the same city, same campus, but not in the same building, to me, that's not co-location, really. Um, anyways, the other bullet point I have here, it's going to get darker before it gets lighter. This happens a lot, not always, but a lot. When a team transitions from waterfall to agile, okay, in the beginning, as you might guess, they're kind of all messed up and not clear and confused, and they learn how to do it and they ramp up. Excuse me. And during that time, there's a good chance that performance and productivity will even go further down more than the waterfall they've been doing. And that would cause the executives to freak out and say, hey, it's not working. It's even gotten worse. I'm canceling. So somebody needs to be there to explain to them, look, take a deep breath, give it a little bit, so they can ramp up and get into the motions. It's not trivial. Everybody thinks agile is trivial. It's not trivial. There's work. There's stuff you need to learn. There's exercise. There's exercising you need to do in order to get into into the motion, into the dynamics and all of that. And the executives need to take a breath and wait patiently. And if everything works well, they should be able to see improvement from sprint to sprint. But it's going to take a few sprints before they start seeing performance which is better than the original waterfall. And I spoke to some people with a lot of experience in that area, and I heard numbers around between 6 and 15 or so, 6 and 12 sprints, 6 and 12 sprints that a brand new team in Scrum has to run before they start giving really good results, better than waterfall. Okay. So let's say a minimum 6 sprints, 2-week sprints, that's 12 months. Okay, that's 12 weeks, 12 weeks. So 3 months, we have to wait before we start, at least before we start seeing something good. And that's why I said, can you take it? Can the executive wait patiently? I had a case where after one sprint or two, I don't remember, executive wrote things back. Okay, because they freaked out, didn't work well. And finally, we mentioned it earlier, no management for you. So you don't manage the team anymore. Not their work, not their day-to-day work. All right. Then there's the naive executive, right? Who thinks agile and Scrum is magic. They heard these wonderful things and they say, I'll put the money in here, I'll put the effort, I'll get everything up and running, and that's it. Life will be wonderful. Everything will go fast, smoothly, cheap, and so on. No more worries. We can start tomorrow, and life and butterflies and whatever. And again, it doesn't work out this way, and they suffer kind of a setback, a disappointment, the executives. And you have to be ready for this, and you have to prepare them for this, and let them know it's going to take a while. And even in perfect teams, there is a big, significant improvements, but nothing is ever perfect. Okay? Nothing is ever perfect. So I'll give you a few seconds to read the Dilbert thing. Okay. I call it the Water Agile organization, from Waterfall and Agile, right? If you're lucky, the business will ask you when you will deliver the final deliverable, the full project. If you're not lucky, the business will tell you when to deliver. So again, give me thumbs up for those of you who had projects where some big important manager came and said, we already signed the contract and we committed to day so and so, and you must deliver to that date or else. Give me thumbs up if this sounds like a familiar theme in your life, right? Okay, it happens a lot. And I'm trying not to make fun of these executives because, like I said, they have their pressures. They have their pressures. They have signed the contract, and their names are on the contract. And the contract says, on this date you shall deliver, or else. And so they're under pressure. And they're used to the expectation that they can go to a team and say, this is the date, and deliver. And we know that usually this ends up bad. Very rarely does a project finish on time. Very rarely. Okay. And it doesn't get, in this respect, it doesn't get better with Agile, because Agile inherently doesn't want to make a commitment, a high degree of confidence commitment, right? There is a roadmap. We do a roadmap in Agile, but we say this is our initial rough estimate. We think that around this quarter or this month, we should be able to be finished, assuming no changes, no surprises. But the commitment, no. Nobody can. Even those who do waterfall can. Even those who make a commitment cannot make a commitment. Okay. So if you are in a agile organization, but your boss comes and says you must commit on this date, something in this agile organization is not right. You cannot hold the sticks on both ends. You cannot do both. You cannot do agile and expect a commitment on a date. I hope you saw that in your own experience. So this is about the interaction between the agile teams and the executives, the leadership. Let's talk about the process itself, right? The Scrum process itself. Things that I've seen a lot, the I know better kind of thing. So when you introduce agile, and throughout even the whole process, when you say Scrum, anybody, please, anybody wants to do Scrum, you begin to get you can get all kinds of reactions. I'm not saying all of them are negative. Some reactions will be supportive and helpful, but you will almost always have those who say it's too short, it's too long, doesn't make sense. People who think they know better, and they want to either completely cancel Agile and say that's not going to work, or they want to change the process. The interesting point, and I'm sure you learned it with Larry, is that Agile is all about what we call inspection and adaptation, right? Agile is all about learning from what we did, looking at the process, seeing where we can improve and change, and making the changes in our process that will make our process better. So that's okay. What I'm talking about here is those situations and those teams who get introduced to Agile. They haven't done a single day of work in Agile. They have zero experience, but they want to fix it up already. No, we don't need to stand up every day. We'll do it once a week. And we won't do it 15 minutes. We do a full hour so we can get good status. All right, things like that. We don't need to do this. We need to do that. This will not work. This will work. So you will run into these kinds of situations if you are, let's say, a Scrum Master or somebody who wants to bring Agile into the organization, then you'll have to deal with those. How do you do it? Okay. It's really a psychological thing, right? Because you're dealing with people who have opinions, and so you need to somehow influence their opinions and sort of work with their psychology, and it's not simple. Anybody suggestions what you would do with these kinds of situations? It's not easy.
Start by asking questions and
Yeah.
listening.
Are you saying this is what you will tell them? Start by asking questions?
No. Start asking them questions. It's too
Right.
complicated. Say more about that. This
Yep.
doesn't make sense. Where are you unclear? What parts are you having a problem with? Too simple. Say more about that, etc. To get them talking and to get other people listening to them. Pretty soon, other people will be asking them the questions, and you can just kind of sit back and listen to the conversation and gradually steer it towards something that's productive.
Yes, that's a good idea. I to be frank, I haven't thought about it. I like it. I think it's a good idea. But it's not easy, right? You have to find the way to influence their thinking, Okay.
I put that in the chat. There's a book called Influence by Bob Cialdini. Classic, excellent book. Use it only for good. It tells you how you can influence people because that's very, very difficult to do. And that's all you have as a coach or a scrum master is influence. You rarely have institutional authority. So you better figure it out quick, else it's going to be a bad day for you, or a bad week, or a bad year, or
Bad life.
bad life. So I recommend the book if you get a chance to read it. It talks about different ways that you can actually influence people based on science and what psychology and sociology has taught us. It's a good place to start. What Jim had to say is good too.
Yep.
Try to meet people where they are, because nobody likes to feel that if you come in, you say, look, I got all the answers, and you give them the perception that you have all the answers, they're going to really, really fight you on it.
Yep.
You got to be there to help them. You got to be there to meet them where they are. You got to give them something. That's what's in it for me. You give them none of that, you're not going to get anywhere, because natural reaction, whether it be in the physical world or even in the mental world, is if you push somebody, they're going to push back. Nobody's just going to lay down and let you push them.
That's the human being. That's natural. We are human beings. You know, a computer, if you take a bunch of computers and say, you will do it this way, computer, sure, no problem, they do it. Computers do command. Human beings are more flexible. They have opinions. Sometimes they will not tell you that they disagree, but they disagree in their mind, in their heart. They will not tell you, but their performance will be influenced. If they don't like what you say, they will not perform well. Their heart is not there. I will also give a suggestion and advice specifically for this situation that I found works well, for me at least. What I tell people, when people start without knowing anything, start immediately saying, I think I know that this is going to be better. Let's drop this and let's skip that and let's change this. What I say is this: when you want to learn to drive a car and you read the book of instructions of how to drive a car, when you finish to read the book, you don't say, I don't think we need the gas pedal. I think we need a different kind of a pedal, or I don't think we need the steering wheel. You are expected to go sit behind the wheel and drive the car for some time before you come back and say, now that I've driven it, I think I know how to improve the car. It doesn't make sense for you to tell me how to fix, to make the car better. You haven't driven a yard. So let's go and do what the best practices say. Let's start with this. I'm not against changes, but let's start. Everybody play along with me. Let's start. And because sprints are short, let's say 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, you can already bring up your disagreements or whatever improvements you want to make. Just bear with me with 2 weeks. Drive the car for 2 weeks. Let's talk again. This usually impresses everybody because they understand the concept about the car, about you don't want to fix a car before you drive it. Improve the car design before you've driven it. So I suggest you think about that if you run into this.
The part of that I found amusing was that you said they read the manual first and then go drive the car.
Right.
I don't know any guy who would do that.
We are old-fashioned. I'm an old guy. That's how I did it when I was a kid. Anyway, but I got the point. All right. Here's another one. The waterfall diehard. You may find in your organization people who are so entrenched, they're so used to a waterfall, they don't want to change. And it can be for different reasons. Some of them truly believe that waterfall doesn't work well. Some of them will not tell you it, but they are just uncomfortable. They don't even know why. A brand new thing, they have to learn it. They don't know how to eat it exactly. That's going to be tough for them to change. And they're going to degrade the quality and performance of your team. Because even if they will kind of be sort of like forced or whatever you want to call it into trying to do this thing, they will do it half-heartedly, not feeling comfortable, feeling, bitterness, frustration, whatever you call it, reminiscing the old days when they used to do waterfall and they knew how to do it. Never mind that it didn't work well, but they knew the rules of the game. They just don't want to change. Okay. And for those, I don't really have for this situation, I don't have a good remedy, except just, telling them, try it out, play with it. Take it easy. Don't take life too seriously and too heavily. Play with it, because a lot of Scrum is really light. Be light. Don't take it too heavy. Play with it. See how it goes for you, how it works for you. But it can be a problem. A short story I'll tell you about this very quickly. I used to work for a company, not the one I'm working now, where the company has decided to move to Agile, and they asked each kind of executive, please move your team to Agile in your area under your responsibility. There were about 5 VPs of engineering, and they were the main groups that needed to move into Agile. And there was one VP of engineering who held out and said, no, I don't like it. I like waterfall. I don't believe in this thing. And he held out. The whole company gradually, month after month, transitioned into Agile, and this guy continued with his team. He he did not give his team even permission. The team said, we want to move to Agile. Let us do it. And he said, no, we continue to do full requirements, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And then after a few months, he disappeared. He quit the company. So I'm giving this as an extreme example that sometimes you cannot fix it, and it gets to such a point that the person simply, I don't know exactly what happened because I was not at that level of VP. Either he was told to go or he read the map. He saw that things are going, he's going to lose the game, and he left. So this is something you need to be aware of. Let's cover the last topic, and then I'll open maybe open for questions. Otherwise, we can continue a little bit more. Okay. This is also kind of a misconception. Okay. Scrum is the ticket to easy life. No more overhead, no more managers, no more process, no more documentation, no more work, no more meetings. Just do the work. It'll be cool and awesome. Now, this is a common misconception. Nobody ever said that Scrum or Agile is easier than Waterfall. What we say is that it's better, it's more effective, it brings better results, performance is better and all of that, but it is a full-time job, and it has its own quote-unquote overhead. Those of you familiar with Scrum, you have the meetings you have to attend, you have the backlog you have to refine, right? You have deliverables to give. And even in Scrum and Agile, you are expected to do some level of documentation, not heavy, but you're expected to do some documentation. If you deliver a product to a customer without training materials, probably going to go down very bad. So somebody has to write those. Okay, you have to write tests and maybe test plans and things like that. So no more overhead. That's not true. There is overhead. Simplicity, if you're those you remember the 12 principles of Agile, one of the important principles is simplicity. So yes, make things simple, but you cannot eliminate completely. You cannot completely stop. It's not like a lot of people dream like we remove all process, we remove all requirements, we remove all overhead, just tell us what we need to do, we'll sit down and do the work. A, Scrum is not like that. B, it's not going to work for you. Even Waterfall is going to be better probably. Because if you're a team of 3 guys or girls or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're a team of 3 people, yeah, maybe you can get away with it. You sit down in a room, 3 people, and you talk to each other and you have fun and you actually can do stuff. If you're a 200 people company, no way that you can do it without some overhead, some process, some of this stuff. Okay. So you need to know how to deliver the right message to all the levels, from the team itself all the way up to leadership, that this is serious, this is rigorous, and there is process and there is some overhead, but the results will be much better compared to Waterfall. Any comments or questions about that? I'm trying to be cognizant of time, Larry, so I'm maybe stopping here. And
no, I think that's good. I was looking at time as well, and I think we're at about I get 6:47, so we got maybe about 10 minutes or so for a little Q&A.
Yep.
Does anybody want to get us started? Any questions for Moshe? Or Moshe? I pronounce it right? I get it wrong.
No, that's good, though. No problem.
Any questions? I know we got questions, folks. And you guys are never shy. Jim?
I'll throw out a comment. My experience was the hardest part of getting the adoption was getting management to acknowledge that they couldn't predict the future and just how badly predictions would come out, and learning to start to work in smaller increments of future and understanding that the farther out you go, the vaguer it gets, and being willing to start letting go of some of the things and learning that things had to be discovered along the way. That was by far the hardest part.
Absolutely. Didn't they initially freak out to the concept?
No, it took time, but what I started with was they'd ask me for an estimate, and I'd say, I'll give you 3 estimates, not 1.
Yep.
I'm going to give you the best case it could possibly happen. I'm going to give you what I anticipate to be the worst case,
Yep.
assuming the earthquake doesn't take the building down. And I'm going to give you the expected case. So here's the expected case, but could be sooner or later, but I want you to keep in mind these boundary conditions because it could go either way. And I'm also going to tell you what I'm going to do if it starts trending toward one of those other extremes. Either we'll add some more stuff in, we'll release earlier, or these are the first 3 things to be cut.
Absolutely. And by the way, this works well also for waterfall. On a side note, I'm telling you, right? If you do the beautiful Gantt chart and you come up with a date at the end, Gantt chart draws it all, and oh, this is the end date. You can always add 10% and reduce 10% and say, these are my margins, right? So this is an excellent way to make, to work with your leadership and make them realize that you are not committing to a single date, but there's a range that they can expect, which is reasonable. I think it's an awesome idea.
It works if they're willing to let it go. Others will sit there and try to needle you down to try to push things because they think you're going to be lazy, or they think you're sandbagging your estimates, etc. And the problem is, if you cave into that, bad outcomes.
That's right. Like we said, you ask them, how many times did it work for you? And if they're honest, they'll say never, more or less, right?
The reason that a lot of you folks here are because you've been involved with the Agile MBA class. So a lot of you have actually completed my class. If you look at how I presented my class and put yourself in the role of an executive, that's who it was written for. This was written for, not that they ever listened to me. You all do, which is good, but they don't necessarily listen to me. But if they did, this class was written for executives to basically say, here are all the reasons why we should do it. And these are all, you look at the number of business reasons I give you. I'm not doing it just because it's all, zebras, farting, rainbows. We're doing it because there's a business reason to do it. The fact that it makes everyone's life better is a great thing too. But if there's no business reason to do it, no executive is going to listen to one iota of a syllable that you have to say. So that, if somebody said, what's your executive agile course? Same damn course you took, because that's who I wrote it for. They just don't listen to me. There's some questions from some other folks. Michael had the question, do you have data you use to show the results are much better in general?
Much better what?
The results, I'm assuming the results of Agile vis-a-vis waterfall.
There's so many, I personally know, there's so many books and articles and things and research that was done that demonstrates how things improved when companies moved to Agile from waterfall. I don't have anything right here. I can probably, just like anybody of you, can search it up on Google and find out lots of articles and books. If you want, I can make an effort and find.
Yeah, no, there's a ton out there. The chaos report shows how bad waterfall did. I have some slides at the beginning of my presentation which talks about how poor waterfall is a fit for what we do in software, specifically software development, complex work. There are studies now that side to side try to compare Agile with waterfall. The problem with that is it's apples and oranges no matter what you do.
It's very hard, yes.
It's very difficult to do that. The easiest thing for me is I've never worked for a team that once I've been able to get them actually to be what I would consider at least somewhat agile, that they'll ever want to go back to the other way.
Yep.
And I'm talking about thousands of people. I'm not talking about like 10 people in a room. I'm talking about thousands of people, dozens, if not, close to 100 different teams. I've never had anybody say, I want to go back to the way it was. I had one guy. There's always the one. I had the one guy says, I liked waterfall because I could hide. There was one developer who told me that, who had the guts to tell me that. The rest of them said, I'll never go. As ugly as this is, how difficult as this is, how much pain we went through to get where we are, I'll never go back to waterfall.
That's right.
You won't hear that from anybody who actually does the work. So that tells me a lot as well. There's one more question from Michael. Maybe Michael, you have to give us a little more around this. How do you do this at a specific client after the agile teams are up to speed?
Do what?
Not quite sure I know what the question is, Michael.
Michael, do you want to explain a little more? Go.
No, we'll give a pass on that. Anybody else have any other questions? You can put them in chat. You can raise your hand. You can speak up. Edward?
Yeah, I have another question here. I've definitely been in experiences where I've spoken with recruiters, and I've spoken about my focus more as a Scrum Master, and their response from more than one recruiter has been, oh no, what we do is we have Scrum Masters just cycle through, like everyone gets to be a Scrum Master on a team, but everyone's also a developer. Or you might hear that about product owners or something else like that. We know that that is not correct, but not that I could be able to tell a recruiter that, but if you were able to speak to a hiring manager, what are 3 things that you would tell them out the gate to be able to have them at least look into that there's a better way of doing things?
When you say about hiring, so it's in the company, hiring.
When you're talking to the person that's either deciding on how these teams are running or are running these teams.
I think we all agree, first of all, that the only reason that, at least that I can think about, why they want to do these things is because they want to be cheap on money, right? There's no other reason in the universe, okay? And so I think the only thing I can say here, not the only thing, there's many things, but that we can say, but like you said a minute ago, I cannot prove them until we try, right? We have to try it. So all the things we know already good. People, a Scrum Master and product owner are full-time jobs by their nature, okay? And so you cannot have one person do it because they will do it, but they'll do it kludgy. If they do it kludgy, the team will work. It's not that the team will not work, but performance will be miserable. And again, people will say, well, what is this agile? It's not working well. More than that, I'll go even further. The problem is not only resources, meaning, in other words, it's not just a problem that let's say a developer is also a Scrum Master. If a developer is Scrum Master, to me, it immediately makes almost 100% sure that that person does not know how to be a good Scrum Master. Because they're probably, first of all, a developer. It's not a Scrum Master who is also a developer. It's a developer who is also Scrum Master. They are, first of all, an engineer. And somebody said, you know what, run those meetings, the Scrum Master meetings. That's not a Scrum Master. And that means they don't know how to do the job, and they do a lousy job, and the team will pay for it. Okay? Scrum Master, there's a reason. It's a very important role, even more so for product owner. Product owner is a full-time job, and it's not an easy job, and it's a very busy, very, very intensive job. And so you have to explain those things to those people, whether you will convince them or not, I don't know. But the answer, the bottom line is, if you don't try, you start right away with a very broken approach. You probably will get the team that is functioning poorly. You won't even know what the potential is there. You're losing the potential. You won't even know about it. Okay, it doesn't make sense. I don't even have to say it. It just doesn't make sense. It's not. I don't have a magic wand to say, if you say this to the manager, they will be completely taken away and say, yeah, great, I understand now. Just, we need to try it and you'll see the difference. It is inconceivable that a developer can do both development and Scrum Master. Somewhere there's a price to pay. If the manager wants to take the risk, okay, take the risk, pay the price.
Yeah, I think when we talked about theory constraints, it's probably a good example of theory constraints when you have a bad Scrum Master who's holding up kind of the work of a team of 7 people because of their incompetence or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
A question for me. I'm not seeing any other questions if anybody has one, but I'm always interested in your experience. If we had to pick the ways that agile transformations do not work, which happens, what are the top 2 or 3 in your mind of why do these things fail so frequently, or any organizational transformation for that matter?
I don't know any, but I know this one. From my experience at least, I would say one of the failure mode comes from the teams, and the other one from leadership. So leadership does not give enough support. I'm not only talking, by the way, about support like financial or something like that. I'm talking about, let's call it moral support, right? Championing it, saying, I'm the leader, I trust you guys, I give you my full confidence and support, go do it. Many times, like we mentioned earlier, a leader heard about it somewhere, competition is doing it, so they kind of, okay, fine, we'll do it here. But this is an attitude which says, go ahead, do it, leave me alone kind of thing. That's not a good sponsorship. But failures also come from the teams. And exactly the example that you gave, Edward, of like, I know better. We don't need a separate PO. We don't need a separate Scrum Master. Let's do all 3 roles with one person kind of thing. That sets us up for failure. So one of the most common ways of failure that I found is teams who just don't know how to do Agile and don't know how to do Scrum, and they do a mess of it. And then it comes out even worse than the waterfall. There's no way around it. If you have a poor quality Scrum Master who doesn't know the job, they will mess up the entire team. It would be a disaster, right? If, for example, you have the team is working on sprints, and the story is never finished at the end of the sprint, and they move on from sprint to sprint to sprint to sprint, spill over. This is actually waterfall. But if the Scrum Master doesn't know to alert and say you can't do that, that's wrong. That's a wrong attitude. Then it's going to be bad. The performance is going to be bad, right? And many things like that, where it's easy to quote unquote abuse Scrum and Agile if you don't know how to do it right. And then performance is very poor, and the team doesn't even know that they're performing poorly. So a lot of it comes from incompetent teams who don't even know they're incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the answer.
Excellent. Jim, we're going to give you the last one because I'm hearing the bells.
I wanted to share a little war story that has some parallels. It wasn't about Agile necessarily, but I was a product manager, and there were several other product and marketing people. And the VP of marketing took us offsite. We went down to Asilomar. We did the whiteboards and everything as to how should we organize ourselves with these product lines and everything. And we came out with a plan that was great. We had 4 business units, 4 people owning it. I owned one of those, another guy owned another one, and then there were 2 much larger business units. 6 months into things, all of a sudden, the 2 biggest business units are not performing well, but mine was performing great. The other guy with the small one was performing great. So what does the guy do? He does not bring us back to an offsite meeting to say, okay, here's the good, the bad, what are we going to do about it? Instead, he says, let me tell you how it will be. We're going to organize the way we did at my last company. We're going to have product management. We're going to have market management, and we're going to have support services here in these 3 groups. And the 2 guys who had the failing business units got promoted to lead 2 of those because they had MBAs. The 2 of us who had successful business units were made to report to those guys. The other guy left. I stuck it out, but yeah, it was a classic case of management panic.
Yep.
When instead, what they should be doing is getting the team back together and say, let's do a retro. Where are we? What can we do better?
Yeah. Okay, good. Moshe, any last words before we get going? We're going to break into groups. If you want to stick around, you have smaller groups, you get to meet some people. They can ask you some questions. Maybe in a smaller group, they'll feel a little more comfortable. But any last words before we say thank you?
First of all, thank you again to everybody. I hope you had fun, and I hope it brought you some value, answer some questions. I'm happy to hang around a little bit more and see if anybody wants to talk to me.
Awesome. All right, so we're moving into the next phase of this wonderful meetup. This is the fun phase for me. This is where we're going to break into smaller groups. I'm looking at maybe about 5 per group. We're going to break you up. We're going to spend some time talking to each other. We're going to bring you back. We'll break you up again so you can meet other people. I just got to get a count. So if any of you folks are going to eject yourself from the proceedings, now's the time so I can get a good count of who's left. Because we're going to throw those people into smaller breakout groups. Those of you folks who aren't with us any longer, I can't tell you, but thank you for being here. You already left. So couldn't say it. I probably need to say that first next time, Edward. Thank you for being here. I hope you had fun. Okay, I see 24 people who are left. I think that's our core group. Oops, we just lost another one, but that's okay. Let's get into let's see, 4 groups. Sound about right? 3 or 4.
4 groups sounds 4 to 5, 4 to 3 to 4. Let's see.
Let's do 4 groups. If you guys keep leaving though, you're gonna be pretty thin on groups. I think we're good. I think we stabilized for the time being. Let's break you into 4 groups. You're gonna get a notice. If you don't see the notice, I forget what the heck to do. But what do we do if we don't see the notice? I'm gonna assign you automatically. Create. All right, I'm gonna open the rooms. You should get a notice and you go to the rooms, and I'm going to bring you all back in at 7:20. So you have about 15 minutes. See ya. Have fun. And there you are. You're back. They mute you when you come back in. That's the problem.